This week on Arizona Illustrated, to arrest or deflect.
If I cited him and arrested him, what would that do? That's not fixing the underlying issue, which is his drug use.
A mother's story.
How could you abandon your children? How could you use while you were pregnant? I don't have an answer. I was really sick.
And nature's healing.
You like to take chances. You like to take a risk. Try this.
A special episode of Arizona Illustrated revealing the impact of opioid use, the stories of those affected, and local resources to help those in need. Welcome to Arizona Illustrated. I'm Tom McNamara. We're here on the University of Arizona campus where students, faculty, and staff are following the test, trace, and treatment protocols established by the administration. In this episode, we're reminded of a different health crisis, the opioid epidemic that continues to plague our nation. But first, an update on the coronavirus in our state. As K-12 school districts move forward with their plans, the state is posting the benchmarks it recommends be met before in-person learning resumes. They include a 2-week drop in weekly average COVID-19 cases and 2 weeks with a positive test rate below 7%. As you can see, as of September 17th, both benchmarks have been met. Lastly, the state recommends a 2-week period of COVID-like illness making up less than 10% of hospital visits. It's important to note that opening classrooms to in-person learning is done so at the discretion of the individual school districts. As of September 17th, this benchmark has been met. For more coronavirus-related information, including a link to the Arizona Department of Health Services website, visit news.azpm.org. In January, February, and March of this year, Arizona Public Media examined a crisis that was and still is devastating Southern Arizonans and their families. No, not the coronavirus, the opioid crisis. For 3 months on radio, TV, and online, we told engaging stories and made available helpful resources through our series, Arizona Addicted. In this episode of Arizona Illustrated, we bring you 3 of those stories, beginning with Tawni Terman and how her battle with opioid addiction helped to shape who she is today. Here is a mother's story.
Thank you for saying
Or
that.
did you want to take that stuff off? I do remember the first time I ever did take an opioid. I was 19, I was having back pain and I was uncomfortable, and I took a Vicodin. It almost felt like the feeling I was searching for so long. I got the house clean, I was motivated, I was happy, using those medications to not only block out physical pain, but hey, check this out, they also block out my emotional pain too. I got married at a young age. I had my first child when I was 20. Prior to pregnancies, when I started kind of getting into the pills for the pain, for the recreational use, once I found out I was pregnant, I had stopped. Had a great pregnancy, had a great marriage during it. This is probably the answer to what I've been seeking. For the emotional pain, this is my answer. Being a mom is it. I didn't know how hard being a mother was at a young age. I got prescribed Percocet for my C-section, 5 milligrams to 10 milligrams to oxycodone. We had stress from having a child, the stress of trying to maintain the house and the expectations of everybody. I was taking about 30 milligram oxycodone a day. Prescribed on the bottle is 1 every 12 hours. But I still had a job, I still had a car, I still had a marriage, and I still had a child, so I knew I had a problem, but I thought I could stop. In 2011, I found out I was pregnant again. I was heavily addicted to oxycodone at the time. I was still getting it prescribed during my pregnancy. So I used my entire pregnancy. By the grace of God, he was not born with withdrawals. I felt like I was being given all these green lights and okays to continue being an addict because it's prescribed. I was heavily addicted after he was born, where it absolutely destroyed my bonding process. I'd be out of my medication 2 weeks early, hitting up family members who I knew had prescriptions. I had gotten cut off from the doctors, and it's just a repetitive cycle, and so eventually you just go buying them off the street. I called a friend who told me she had something that wasn't quite the same, but it would take away the withdrawal, and that was heroin. It was cheaper, and it sucked me in faster than anything I ever could have imagined. Before I knew it, I was using it IV. I had lost my kids. I had lost my job. So I did IV heroin for about 3 years. So this is all in a 5-year span, from prescriptions to homeless and shooting up heroin every day, 20 times a day. I was using meth as well. Because of that pain and that guilt and that hate of failing as a mom, it just increased my addiction more and more and more. At this time, I had overdosed behind a Subway restaurant at 4 o'clock in the morning. Barefoot, and I didn't know where I was, or who I was with, or why the cops were there. And I caught yet another charge. And when the cop arrested me, he looked at me and said he was staring at death walking. He said, "I see this every day, but I can see the pain in your eyes and the physical shape you're in. And I don't know how you're still alive, and I don't think you will be for much longer." I had lost my children. I had lost everything, and I had met somebody. That relationship ended up in an unplanned pregnancy. Terminating the pregnancy was brought up many times by many different people, and I shut it down. I don't know what happened. I don't know what clicked, but I called my mom one day, and I said, "Take me to an ER. I don't care where I need to go. I need to get help. I can't do this again. I won't do this again." So she took me to a hospital, and that hospital had just started a program the week prior for pregnant women who were trying to get off heroin. I was able to get off of the heroin with the medication, methadone. I had to change my whole environment, people, places, things, and it worked. I gave birth to my daughter, and I was able to keep her. She went through a little bit of withdrawal, but she was healthy and fine.
Hey, it's my friends. Hooray.
How would I explain my actions? How could you abandon your children? How could you use while you were pregnant? I don't have an answer. I don't have an answer. I was really sick. This is an illness. This is a serious illness. Prior to being an addict, I judged. How the hell could anybody do that to their children? How could somebody use while they're pregnant? Oh my God, just stop. Just stop. Why can't you just stop? It affects your brain chemistry. It affects your thought process. Before you even know what's happening, it happens.
I have 4 months as of today sober. For Christmas, I'm not sure. I got approved to go back home, but it's always a fear. Like, I got approved for Thanksgiving and I didn't go. You know what I mean? Like,
What's your fear, if you don't mind sharing?
I just don't. I know, like, those are my stomping grounds. Like, that's where, you know what I mean? Like, everything is, you know? And I'm not strong enough to go and not use.
Working here at the Haven is absolutely incredible. And so many times when I'm talking with somebody and it's like looking in a mirror.
He's gonna be with his dad this year, and I wish I could be with him. And last year, I was going through a lot of losses with just getting out of jail, and I wanted to change it, just didn't know how. And I stopped drinking, but I still was not okay.
This job and watching these miracles happen every single day is such an exponential part of my sobriety. It's huge. Giving hope to somebody, showing somebody that that they can do it, being that role model. The biggest compliment that I'll ever receive in my entire life is when somebody says you're an inspiration. It's almost too much to take in. I don't feel like that. I have my mugshot hanging in my office on the wall to show, hey, look, it will get so much better. And it does. Now I'm currently expecting, 7 months pregnant with my fourth. You don't take anything for granted anymore because you know what it's like to lose it all. You know what it's like to be in misery. You know what it's like to have nobody. So when you gain all that back and you've worked so hard for it, you have such a bigger appreciation for it, and you learn to take nothing, even the smallest of things, for granted.
Yay! Hooray! Hooray!
First responders, including police, often encounter people in active drug and alcohol addiction. If an arrest is made, the person is prosecuted, and very often he or she will be arrested again, and the cycle continues. Prompting the question, is there another approach that might offer a different outcome? At the cusp of the virus outbreak in mid-March, Arizona 360's Lorraine Rivera and Cassandra Lau accompanied a team of Tucson police officers and specialists with Kodak Health, Recovery, and Wellness who can offer treatment instead of jail.
He's with another male.
In 2 unmarked police cruisers,
something in their life happened that led them down this path.
Arizona 360 hit the road with Tucson Police Department's Substance Use Resource Team, led by Sergeant Erica Stropka.
It used to break my heart that, this was the only option, is to take this person to jail.
On our way to what the department considers a hotspot for drug-related activity.
We're going to be heading over to a tunnel, like a drainage wash,
to see how officers implement the department's Deflection program.
Sometimes it's a good place for us to meet some new faces and really get out the information about the program, as well as getting naloxone into more people's hands.
TPD enacted the program in the summer of 2018. It lets officers choose whether to arrest people in possession of certain narcotics, including heroin and meth, or refer them to treatment. The logic being that at a time when opioid-related overdoses were on the rise, sending people to jail didn't necessarily stop them from continuing to misuse drugs once they were free.
Would we be arresting people who had diabetes and telling them, just stop eating sugar? like that's kind of, I know that's kind of a real, might be hard for some people to understand, but it's not too far off.
However, only adults are eligible, as long as they're not wanted for a violent crime or domestic violence. Since the program began, officers have completed more than 1,100 deflections. That's according to researchers at the University of Arizona, tasked with evaluating the program's success.
Best case scenario is right away they go. They start their treatment, and then I hear from them a little while later saying, hey, you saved my life. The worst case scenario is they tell me they want it, they just don't want it today. And that is probably one of the hardest things to hear, is when they say, come back tomorrow. Because in my head, I know they're saying come back tomorrow because they want to go use one last time. It's very common, we get that. They won't tell me that they want to go use one last time. And my fear is between now and tomorrow, they're gonna overdose and die.
The substance use resource team we're riding with today come with special backup. A grant allows members of Kodak Health Recovery and Wellness to join officers in the field and share more information about the services offered by Kodak to help people overcome their addictions.
They're able to speak from a place of experience that I couldn't do, and that's really key.
That's true for Brendan Bond, who struggled with an addiction to heroin that resulted in a criminal rap sheet. After seeking treatment, he has remained sober for the last 5 years and hopes to help others do the same.
I mean, I can't tell you what would have happened, but if I would have gotten caught by one of these guys or shown where Kodak was early in my addiction, maybe I wouldn't have gone through all the stuff that I went through.
As our vehicles head toward the same destination, by chance, our paths diverge.
What's up, buddy?
What up, bro?
Black sweatshirt, you just took a 30-pack there.
A brief stop at a convenience store leads to a tip about an alleged shoplifter who took a case of beer.
And Cert 15, I'll be out my suspect.
Intercepted down the road, Officer Chris Sierravella and Travis Napier find drug paraphernalia on the man. With Kodak peer support specialist Bri Acuna, they explain his options.
You're not the first one that happens to.
Once he agrees, the handcuffs come off, and Officer Sierravella and Acuna continue on to Kodak, where they take him through a special entrance so the enrollment process can begin. On this day, he was the 4th person deflected here by officers.
Good luck to you. Okay. We don't ever take each one for granted. We don't ever say like, oh, it's every day because, it's just another one. We realize that each person that goes is potentially another life being saved. It's another set of parents getting their child back. It's someone else getting their father or mother back.
This is probably, when we were talking about best case scenario, I think this was
best case scenario.
This was best case scenario, yeah.
They say usually there's a lot of people in here.
At the tunnels, officers entered with flashlights.
Hello, Tucson police, anybody home?
And quickly came upon a horde of items, makeshift rooms, and a man and woman.
Technically, you're trespassing, okay?
Okay.
That's not our primary concern today, okay? So as long as you're cool with me, I'm not planning on taking you to jail.
In the open air, peer support specialists and officers begin a similar dialogue as before, but this time with different results.
I'd just rather not waste my time or your guys, or his time.
I discussed the outcome with Officer Napier and Bond shortly after.
I've met him before, and basically the same thing happened. He listens, but he's just not ready to go, or he's scared to go, or he doesn't have confidence in himself.
Yeah.
So that's why this time I just tried to encourage him and tell him that he can do it and try to share a little bit of my story, just so that next time maybe he's like, oh, this is the guy that believes in me, or whatever, you know?
Frustrating for you to know that you've seen this face before, you've had this speech?
Not really frustrating, just kind of makes me sad, just to see someone where I used to be and they don't have the confidence or the courage to better themselves right now. It's just building rapport, building a relationship, and trying to encourage him for the next time, hopefully, you know? And then teach him harm reduction so that he stays alive for the next time.
I just think, what's the bigger issue here? I mean, sure, it is against the law, but as a police officer, I have discretion to make certain things, you know? If I cited him and arrested him, what would that do? Probably within a couple of weeks, he would have missed the court and he'd have a warrant.
What does it take to heal? At the Circle Tree Ranch east of Tucson, the Amity Foundation strives to create a safe space for individual journeys of recovery and a place where nature is a part of the healing.
My name is Sheila Schrader. I am the Landscape and Garden Coordinator at Amity Foundation here in Tucson, Arizona.
At the Amity Foundation, Sheila Schrader is surrounded by towering trees and beloved animals.
That's right, eat your vegetables.
There is also multicultural art representing different faith traditions and serenity.
It's very beautiful to think about, the mystery of it all. And to me, it's just as good of a chapel as any other place.
It is a stark contrast to her early years. While growing up in Southeast Arizona, Schrader experienced poverty and witnessed domestic violence. In high school in the early 1970s, she tried marijuana, and from there, it kept on going. Cocaine, alcohol, meth, and then an addictive, illegal opioid.
I used heroin. That was my drug of choice when I came in. And I had been using it for about 3 years, which isn't very long compared to most people that we deal with. And that took me down every single road that they say it'll take you. I started snorting at first. I said I would never shoot it. I shot it. I said I would never steal from people. I stole. I said I would never lie to people. I lied. I sold myself. I prostituted. I did everything that they say you'll do. And never dreamed that I would ever do any of those things.
After getting arrested in the 1980s, Schrader was given a choice: seek treatment or face a 3-year prison sentence. Initially, she chose prison. She actually thought it might be easier than a recovery program, but the judge asked her to reconsider. Schrader did, and the Amity Foundation Circle Tree Ranch became her oasis.
We used to be told when I first came here, and years of working here, I stayed on for 14 years originally because it was a safe place, because it was so fascinating, you know, to see people that were covered with tats. They were saying things like, I need to develop my integrity. You know, to me it was just shocking to see people that were clearly came from places like I did that were speaking a completely different language. It was just interesting. It was an interesting place. That kept me on, I think, more than anything.
She began as a student, the Amity word for clients in recovery, and eventually she joined the staff.
I've done everything there is to do here, whether it's business management, directing programs in prisons, opening and closing programs. At this point, hopefully it's my last position. I'm turning 66 in May, and I never plan on retiring, but I want to go down to fewer hours, but this will be my last job. And I intend to leave a legacy behind of good food and animals and what we're calling now the Seven Sisters Farm, because we have 7 female goats that are helping to maintain the gardens. Here comes the other ones. Come on, Loretta. They're all named after country western singers.
At the Amity Foundation, the animals, gardens, and artwork are just some of the elements that are used on the sprawling 60-acre campus.
Grounding is not only a term, it actually works. You know, you work with your hands, and it's very satisfying, and it really kind of connects you internally and externally in a very healthy way. Well, I don't think you can do both in March.
President Rod Mullen says there's also an emphasis on nutritious food, acquiring new skills, and even taking walks with others so people can talk and learn from each other.
Understanding how they got where they were. No one was born an addict, you know, so something happened in their past. And to understand, how did I get this way? And then how do I not continue this? And so there's a lot of things people have to learn. It's a very holistic, very comprehensive program.
Dr. Esther Sternberg is with the University of Arizona's Institute on Place, Well-Being, and Performance. While she doesn't have specific information about the benefits of nature when it comes to treating opioid addiction, studies do show that the outdoors are beneficial in the healing process overall. A natural high without ingesting chemicals.
Basically, the way you can think about it is, what is it that you see or hear or smell or touch or do in a space that can help you heal, that can reduce your stress, that can improve your moods? And there's a lot of scientific literature, a lot of scientific research in the field of sensory neuroscience, actually, that shows that all of those elements of the environment and views of the outdoors are positive, can help you heal, reduce stress, improve your moods.
Moving forward, experts say these topics deserve more attention and study. Mullen also recommends that the nation take a serious look at its history of drug addiction and responses.
We constantly kind of wake up with these crises and say, my God, what happened? And act in a panicked way rather than a thoughtful, comprehensive way about this. And I don't know why we fail to really look at poverty and lack of opportunity and addiction, which are just a key lock. There is a substantial, persistent drug abuse problem we've had in this country for 50, 60 years. We've largely spent our money on criminal justice and on trying to interdict drugs at the border. And you can see the folly of that in terms of the opioid crisis, which is the opiates they were manufactured right here.
In the meantime, Schrader will continue to count her blessings. Inspiration, she says, is waiting to be discovered.
For me, I found that my God, my love, my magic comes from outside, from the garden. And from seeing the seeds grow and helping the babies be born, the baby goats and the chickens and the eggs. There is something much bigger than all of us.
Sheila, what's your message to people who say, none of this is going to help, I'm a lost cause?
I say to them, because I know they're afraid, you like to take chances. You like to take a risk. Try this. You want to try something different, something that scares you. Let's give this a shot. It'll pay off.
The stories you just saw are a small representation of 3 months of opioid addiction-related reporting which AZPM conducted last winter. To view, read, or listen to all of these stories, and for local resources, including treatment options, visit news.azpm.org, Arizona Addicted. Thank you for joining us here on Arizona Illustrated. I'm Tom McNamara. Stay safe, and we'll see you next week.